He forced her into a contract marriage to pay a debt that was never hers. But the cruelest part was not the wedding the armed guards or the dangerous man waiting at the altar. It was the night he finally gave her permission to leave, and she realized freedom no longer felt like freedom without him. Outside, snow buried the streets of Philadelphia. Inside Damian Vale's mansion, Dr. Evelyn Hart stood before 2 packed suitcases, a canceled debt and divorce papers already signed in his cold, precise handwriting. For 11 months she had dreamed of this moment, so why could she not pick up the pen? This is not only a story about a mafia king and the woman he tried to control. It is about fear, sacrifice, chosen family, and the difference between being trapped and choosing to stay. Watch until the end, then like the video and comment where you are watching from. 11 months earlier, Evelyn Hart did not know what freedom would one day cost her. At 5:12 in the morning, she stood beneath the white lights of the emergency department at St. Catherine's Medical Center with blood drying across her scrubs. A 17-year-old boy lay on the trauma table, his skin turning gray while the cardiac monitor screamed above the noise of rushing feet. "Pressure is falling," a nurse said. Evelyn pressed both hands against the wound beneath his ribs. "Get another unit of blood in him." The boy's eyes opened. They were wide and terrified. "Am I dying?" Evelyn leaned closer. "Not while I am standing here. Stay with me." She had said those words to hundreds of patients. Sometimes they survived. Sometimes they did not. Either way, she spoke with certainty because panic was contagious and someone had to become the ground. The surgical team arrived minutes later. The boy still had a pulse when they pushed him toward the operating room. Evelyn stripped off her gloves and walked to the sink. Her hands remained steady until the water touched them. Her phone vibrated. 6 missed calls from her father. Raymond Hart never called 6 times to ask how she was doing. He called when the rent was late, when his car had been impounded, or when a man from a betting room had appeared outside his house. A message appeared. "Please come alone. They know about Sophie." Evelyn called her mother first. Sophie had slept there because Evelyn was working overnight. "Is she with you?" "She is upstairs." "Why lock the doors? Do not let anyone in." She left the hospital before anyone could stop her. Rain darkened the streets of Philadelphia. Delivery trucks moved through empty intersections while dawn turned the sky the color of dirty glass. Her father lived in a narrow brick row house in South Philadelphia. A black sedan waited at the curb with its engine running. The front door was unlocked. Raymond sat at the kitchen table with a split lip and a swollen cheek. His hands shook around a glass of water. 2 armed men stood near the back door. Across from him sat Damian Vale. Evelyn knew his face before he introduced himself. His name appeared in newspaper photographs beside politicians, judges, union leaders, and men who later claimed they had never met him. He owned construction companies, private security firms, restaurants, and gaming properties in Atlantic City. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie. A faint scar crossed the edge of his jaw. He did not look angry. That frightened her most. Angry men shouted. They gave away the shape of what they wanted. Damian Vale sat in her father's kitchen as if he had already decided how the morning would end. His eyes moved over her blood-stained shoes and hospital badge. "Dr. Hart, Mr. Vale." He gestured toward an empty chair. "Sit. I prefer standing. You have been working. My schedule is not your concern. Everything connected to your father became my concern when he stole from me." Evelyn turned to Raymond. "What did you do? I was going to fix it." That sentence had followed every disaster of her childhood. Damian opened a file. "Your father borrowed $200,000 through a gaming room connected to one of my businesses. When he could not repay it, he stole another $280,000 from a cash transfer." Evelyn stared at Raymond. "You owe him $480,000. I thought I could win it back before anyone noticed." "You thought you could steal from Damian Vale and win it back at a table. I was desperate." "No. You were gambling." Raymond looked at her as if she had come to solve everything. She turned to Damian. "What do you want?" "Your father cannot repay me." "I know. You cannot repay me either." "I know that too. I am not asking you to." He placed a black folder on the table. "What is that A proposal?" At 6 in the morning, beside 2 men carrying guns, it was the first time everyone involved was available. Damian dismissed the armed men. They left through the back door. The room became quieter, though not safer. He opened the folder. The first page carried her full legal name. The second carried his. At the top were the words, "Marriage Agreement." Evelyn read them twice. "No, you have not read it. I do not need to." Raymond whispered, "Eve, just listen." She looked at him. You knew his eyes dropped. The betrayal landed harder than the debt. Damian folded his hands. "I require a wife for 12 months. You require one. I am completing a waterfront acquisition. The financing depends on banks, private investors, and city officials. My reputation has become inconvenient. They prefer stability. And a wife makes you stable. A wife like you makes me believable." He knew where she worked. He knew she had been divorced for 4 years. He knew Sophie's school and Evelyn's volunteer schedule. "You investigated my daughter. I investigated everyone connected to the agreement. She is 8 years old. She is also the reason you will consider it." Evelyn closed the folder. "You do not speak about her. I am not threatening Sophie. You put her name in a file to protect her from the consequences of your father's choices." The words were cruel because they were true. "You are using his life to purchase mine." Yes, his honesty was colder than a lie. "What happens if I refuse? The debt returns to the men responsible for collecting it. You could stop them. I could. But you will not. Not without an agreement. That is a threat. It is an explanation. No, it is a threat spoken quietly enough to let you pretend otherwise." Something changed in Damian's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. He pushed the folder toward her. 12 months. Public appearances when required. Residence at my estate. Separate rooms. No physical relationship unless both parties choose one. Your career remains untouched. At the end of the year, you receive $1 million and your father's debt disappears the day the marriage becomes legal. Why me? You are respected. Hire an actress. People expect actresses to perform. A socialite. I need someone who cannot be purchased cheaply. And yet here you are, purchasing me expensively. The edge of his mouth moved. "Read it, Doctor." Evelyn picked up the folder because Sophie's name remained in the room even when no one spoke it. The agreement described protection, privacy, compensation, public duties, and termination rights. It did not describe the armed men outside or the bruise on Raymond's face. It did not describe a choice that existed only because every other door had been locked. "I want my own lawyer." Raymond leaned forward. "We do not have time." Damian looked at him. "You are no longer part of the conversation." Then he turned to Evelyn. "Choose any attorney in the city. You will pay the legal fees. Yes. My attorney will not work for you. Yes. And no one from your organization speaks to her without my permission." "Agreed." Evelyn called Marissa Cole a family law attorney she knew through the hospital board. Marissa arrived 90 minutes later, read the agreement, and spoke to Evelyn alone. "This is legal," she said. "That does not make it clean. I know. You can refuse." Evelyn looked through the doorway at her father. "Can I?" Marissa did not answer. Together they rewrote the contract. Sophie would live with Evelyn at Damian's estate. She would have her own room and private space. Damian could not make decisions about her education, health, or personal life. No physical relationship would be required. Evelyn would continue working at St. Catherine's. Criminal meetings would remain away from Sophie. Raymond's debt would be canceled upon marriage. The final settlement would remain payable even if Damian ended the arrangement early. Evelyn added one last condition. "If I believe Sophie is unsafe, I leave without warning." Damian read it. "And if you are mistaken, I still leave." His gaze held hers. Accepted. Raymond moved closer when the papers were ready. "Eve, I swear I will make this right." "No, you will not." His mouth opened. "You will tell yourself this was the last time. You will feel guilty for a week. Then you will believe you deserve another chance. When that chance fails, you will call me. I am your father. That has always meant more to me than it meant to you." Evelyn picked up the pen and signed every page. Her fingers did not shake. She slid the contract toward Damian. "You are buying 12 months of appearances. You are not buying obedience." He signed beneath her name. "I would not know what to do with an obedient wife." Damian took out his phone and made one call. "Cancel Raymond Hart's balance," he said. "Every account, every marker. No one contacts him again without my permission." He ended the call and looked at Evelyn. "It is done." She had expected relief. Instead, she felt something inside her close. $480,000 had vanished with a sentence. The ease of it revealed more about Damian's power than the guards or the black car outside. Her father's life had been reduced to a number in a ledger, and Damian Vale had erased it because she had written her name on a page. Raymond stood and reached for her. Eve. She stepped back before he could touch her. You do not call Sophie. You do not come to the hospital. You do not appear at my mother's house. Not until I decide I am ready to hear your voice. You cannot cut me out. I just married a stranger to keep you alive. Do not tell me what I cannot do. Raymond looked toward Damian, perhaps expecting another man to restore the authority he had lost. Damian remained seated. This is between you and your daughter, he said. You should listen carefully. Evelyn walked out of the house without looking back. Damian followed several minutes later. He found her beneath the porch awning, staring at the rain. You could still disappear, she said. I do not. I have heard that criminals dislike paperwork. His gaze rested on her face. I dislike broken agreements more. 3 days later, they were married in a private courtroom in Center City. There were no flowers, no music, and no family gathered in polished pews. Sophie wore a blue dress and held Evelyn's hand outside the courtroom. Do I have to call him Dad? No. Do I have to like him? No. Do you like him? Evelyn looked through the glass doors. Damian stood at the far end of the hall in a black suit. 2 men waited behind him, scanning everyone who entered. No! Then why are you marrying him? Evelyn crouched in front of her. Grandpa made a dangerous mistake. This is how I am keeping us safe. That does not sound like a wedding. It does not feel like one either. Sophie touched her face. Are you scared a little? I am too. We can be scared together. Inside, the judge read the civil vows with professional speed. When he asked whether Evelyn accepted Damian Vale as her lawful husband, the room seemed to narrow around her. Damian looked at her. For the first time, there was no command in his expression, only attention. I do, Evelyn said. I do, Damian answered. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Camera shutters erupted. Questions struck from every direction. Dr. Hart, how long have you known Mr. Vale? Is this marriage connected to the waterfront deal? Were you aware of the investigations into your husband? Sophie tightened her grip on Evelyn's hand. Damian moved closer. One hand settled at the center of Evelyn's back, while his other arm created a barrier between Sophie and the cameras. Keep walking, he said. A reporter stepped too close. One of Damian's men moved forward, but Damian stopped him with a glance. No one touches them. The crowd shifted. Inside the car, Sophie sat between them. Are those men always going to follow us? Some of them, Damian said. Why, to keep you safe? They look like they are keeping everyone else scared. Damian glanced at Evelyn. Sometimes those things resemble each other. The Vale estate stood behind iron gates on a quiet road in Chestnut Hill. Evelyn expected marble floors, white walls, and rooms built to impress people who were not welcome to stay. Instead, she found warm wood, old books, worn leather chairs, and a piano marked by years of use. The house smelled like garlic and fresh bread. A woman in her 60s appeared from the kitchen. This must be Sophie. Sophie moved closer to Evelyn. I am Rosa. I made hot chocolate, but Mr. Vale says I add too much sugar, so naturally I added more. Sophie looked at Damian. He tells you what to do. He tries. Rosa carried her toward the kitchen before fear could settle. Damian showed Evelyn the second floor. Sophie's room had pale green walls, a window seat, shelves filled with books, and a desk beneath the window. You prepared this? Evelyn said. Yes, you assumed I would agree. I prepared for the possibility. Her bedroom stood across the hall from Sophie's. It had a private bathroom and a lock on the inside. Damian saw her notice it. Use it. You are not offended by a locked door, by what it means. His gaze held hers. It means you understand where you are. That evening, Rosa served pasta at a long wooden table. Sophie asked Damian whether he owned the entire house, whether he had been arrested, and whether the guards slept in their cars. Then she pointed her fork at him. Are you a criminal? Evelyn set down her glass. Damian considered the question seriously. Some people believe I am. That is not an answer. No, it is not. Are you dangerous? Damian looked at Evelyn before answering. Yes. Sophie became still. Are you dangerous to my mom? No. There was no hesitation. Only certainty. After Sophie fell asleep, Evelyn locked her bedroom door. She showered until the smell of the hospital disappeared, then stood before the mirror wearing an unfamiliar wedding ring in a house guarded by men with guns. She had saved a boy that morning. She had married a crime boss before noon. Her father's debt was gone. None of it felt real enough to belong to one day. Footsteps moved through the hallway. Evelyn opened the door. Damian stood several feet away, his jacket gone and his sleeves rolled to his forearms. "You are safe here," he said. "I will decide when I feel safe." His eyes moved to the lock. "Keep it locked." He walked away. At 3 in the morning, low voices woke her. Evelyn crossed the hall to check Sophie. Her daughter slept beneath a pile of blankets, one hand curled around a stuffed rabbit. On her way back, Evelyn heard men speaking below. "The marriage changes the calculation," an unfamiliar voice said. "The doctor makes you look stable, but she also makes you vulnerable." Another man answered, "And the child makes it worse." Silence followed. Then Damian spoke. "The marriage makes the doctor a target." A chair moved across the floor. "Then anyone who comes near her dies before they reach the gate." By morning, Damian's words had settled into Evelyn's mind like smoke. Anyone who came near her would die before reaching the gate. She had heard threats before. Emergency rooms collected them. Men promised revenge while nurses held gauze against their wounds. Frightened relatives cursed doctors when grief demanded someone to blame. Those threats were usually born from panic. Damian's had sounded like policy. Evelyn stood at the kitchen counter while Rosa packed Sophie's lunch. Beyond the windows, 2 men in dark coats moved along the edge of the property. They did not speak to one another. They watched the trees, the road, and every vehicle that slowed near the gates. Sophie sat at the table eating toast with strawberry jam. "Do those men live here?" "No," Evelyn said. Rosa placed an apple in Sophie's lunch bag. "Some of them probably believe they do." Damian entered without making a sound. He wore a black overcoat over a dark suit. His hair was still damp from the shower. He crossed to the coffee machine, poured a cup, and glanced at the clock. "Your driver is waiting." Evelyn turned. "My car is outside. You are not taking it. I am going to work." "I know. Then you know I can drive there." Damian took a slow drink of coffee. "Your vehicle has not been checked. It was parked behind iron gates all night. That does not make it safe." Evelyn lowered her voice so Sophie would not hear the anger in it. "You do not decide how I get to work." Damian placed the cup in the sink and rinsed it himself. "I already did." Evelyn stared at him. "You have an impressive ability to make 3 words sound like a declaration of war." He dried the cup and returned it to the cabinet. "You married a difficult man?" "I married an arrogant one." "That too." Sophie looked between them. "Are you fighting?" "No," Evelyn said. "Yes," Damian said at the same time. Sophie considered this. Mom usually wins. Damian buttoned his coat. "I suspected she might." Evelyn followed him into the entrance hall. "You promised I could continue my life. You can. Inside a moving fortress. The car is comfortable. That is not the point." "No. The point is that someone discussed using you and Sophie to weaken me. You heard them talking." "I did not. You were upstairs. I was standing on the landing." Damian stopped. His eyes became colder. "How much did you hear?" "Enough. You should not move through the house at night without telling security. It is a house, Damian, not a military base. It is both now." She looked toward the kitchen where Sophie was asking Rosa whether hot chocolate counted as breakfast. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." Damian's expression did not change, but his voice lowered. "What did you think marrying me would look like? I thought I would attend dinners, smile for photographs, and avoid being murdered before my morning shift. That remains the goal." She almost laughed, though nothing about the conversation was funny. He opened the front door. A black sport utility vehicle waited beneath the covered drive. "I will take the driver today," Evelyn said. "Tomorrow I drive myself. We will discuss it." "No, I am informing you." Damian looked at her for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted to Sophie, who had appeared behind them with her backpack. "Your mother is very stubborn." Sophie shrugged. "You probably should have researched that." The driver hid a smile. For the first week, Evelyn attempted to treat the Vale estate like temporary housing. She worked long shifts. She ate at the hospital whenever possible. She spent evenings in Sophie's room reading until her daughter fell asleep. She avoided Damian's study and ignored the men stationed in the halls. Damian made avoidance difficult without seeming to try. His schedule remained unpredictable, but his presence was everywhere. A fresh pot of coffee appeared when she returned before dawn. The hall lights were left on when she worked late. The refrigerator filled with the yogurt Sophie liked after Evelyn mentioned it once to Rosa. A second phone appeared on Evelyn's bedside table with one number programmed into it. Damian. She carried it only because Sophie was now connected to his security system. That was what she told herself. On the 8th morning, Evelyn came downstairs and found Sophie kneeling on a chair in the library. A wooden chessboard sat between her and Damian. He had removed his suit jacket. His sleeves were folded neatly to his forearms. Sophie held a black knight in one hand. Why can this one jump? Because it is the only piece that moves differently from how it looks. That sounds suspicious. Most useful things are. Evelyn remained in the doorway. Damian noticed her but did not interrupt the lesson. Sophie moved the knight to the wrong square. No, Damian said. You said it moves like an L. It does. That looked like an L to me. It looked like a chair falling down a staircase. Sophie narrowed her eyes. You are not a very encouraging teacher. I am an accurate one. She moved the piece again. Damian nodded. Better. Evelyn entered. When did this begin? 10 minutes ago, Sophie said. 20, Damian corrected. Time moves differently when adults explain simple things. Damian looked toward Evelyn. She asked to learn. You could have told her no. She would not have listened. That is true. Sophie pointed at the board. The queen is stronger than the king. In most situations, Damian said. Why? Because the king spends most of the game needing protection. Sophie looked at Evelyn. That sounds accurate. Damian laughed. The sound was quiet and brief, but it changed his entire face. For 1 second, the man feared throughout Philadelphia disappeared. Evelyn saw someone younger beneath the control, someone who might once have laughed often. Then he looked at her and the moment closed. She picked up her coat. I have to leave. Your driver is outside, Damian said. I know. She had stopped arguing about the driver after discovering the same car followed behind her whenever she drove herself. At least this way, Damian's men did not pretend they were invisible. At St. Catherine's, Evelyn's life remained familiar enough to breathe inside. The emergency department did not care whom she had married. Bleeding patients did not read society pages. Broken bones did not pause because reporters had photographed her outside a courthouse. Her colleagues were less merciful. Dr. Nathan Briggs caught her alone near the medication room. You married Damian Vale, so I have been told. I thought it was a rumor. There were legal documents involved. Nathan leaned closer. Are you safe? Evelyn looked at him. He was not asking for gossip. They had worked together for 7 years. He had held her hand after her divorce became final and brought Sophie coloring books during long shifts. I am not in immediate danger. That is a carefully constructed sentence, I am aware. If you need help, say so. Thank you. He looked past her toward the waiting room windows. There is a man in a black coat who has been standing outside for 2 hours. He is not here for treatment, I guessed. He is security. Nathan stared. Your security? My husband's. That distinction feels less important than you think. Evelyn did not answer. That evening she found Damian in the dining room reading a folder while Rosa served roasted chicken. Sophie was already seated. You cannot place guards outside the hospital entrance, Evelyn said. Damian turned one page. They are across the street. They are frightening patients. They are not speaking to patients. A large man watching every person who enters an emergency room does not need to speak. Damian closed the folder. Where would you prefer them? Nowhere. Choose somewhere. I choose nowhere. That option is unavailable. Sophie raised her hand. Both adults looked at her. At school, when 2 people cannot agree, we make a compromise. Damian leaned back in his chair. What compromise do you suggest? Sophie thought carefully. The guard can sit in a car where nobody sees him. Evelyn looked at Damian. He looked almost amused. Acceptable, he said. I was not asking you, Evelyn replied. You were not solving the problem either. She sat down. Rosa placed a bowl of vegetables between them. You have been married 8 days, she said. Already you argue like professionals. The first major public event came 2 weeks later. A charity gala was being held at the Philadelphia Museum of Art to raise money for pediatric trauma care. Evelyn had attended similar events for years, usually in borrowed dresses and uncomfortable shoes. This time, a designer arrived at the estate carrying 6 gowns. Evelyn sent her away. Damian found her in the library that evening. The dresses were selected for you. Then whoever selected them wasted an afternoon. You require formal clothing. I own formal clothing. He glanced at the dark blue dress hanging over the back of a chair. That, yes, it is modest. That is not an insult. It was not intended as one. Evelyn crossed her arms. I am not allowing you to dress me like an employee. You are attending as my wife. I know what I am. Damian watched her for a moment. Wear what you choose. The night of the gala, Evelyn changed her mind about the blue dress. Not for Damian. At least that was what she told herself. She chose a dark red gown from the back of her closet. It had been purchased years earlier for a hospital fundraiser she never attended because Sophie developed a fever. The dress was simple, fitted at the waist, and cut low enough to make her feel exposed after months in hospital scrubs. She pinned her hair up and stood before the mirror. For a moment, she barely recognized the woman looking back. Sophie entered without knocking. You look like a movie star. I feel like someone wearing clothes that are too expensive to breathe in. Damian is going to stare. Evelyn turned. Why would you say that? He stares at you when you are not looking. Sophie, what he does. Downstairs, Damian stood near the fireplace, speaking with one of his men. He looked up as Evelyn entered. The man beside him stopped talking. Damian's gaze moved over her slowly, not carelessly, not as if he owned what he saw. He simply looked. Sophie had been right. You look, he began. Contractually appropriate, I was going to say beautiful. The honesty of it struck harder than flirtation would have. Evelyn touched the small diamond pendant at her throat. Thank you. Damian extended his hand. She hesitated before placing hers in it. His fingers closed around hers with controlled warmth. At the museum, light spilled across marble floors and polished glasses. Politicians, surgeons, investors, and wealthy families moved beneath enormous columns while photographers waited near the entrance. Damian placed one hand at the center of Evelyn's back. The gesture was familiar now, but tonight it felt different. Public, possessive, protective, perhaps all three. You know half the people in this room, he said. I have treated half the people in this room. That seems less reassuring. Powerful men still fall downstairs. I will remember that. Evelyn spoke with donors and hospital board members. She smiled when cameras turned toward them. She allowed Damian to refill her water and guide her through the crowd. He remembered names she had mentioned once. He knew her department chief had recently undergone knee surgery. He asked a children's charity director about a new family housing program. He listened more than he spoke. It unsettled Evelyn. She had expected him to dominate every room. Instead, he allowed the room to reorganize itself around him. A city councilman named Robert Hall approached after his third glass of champagne. Dr. Hart, he said, I was beginning to believe Vale invented you. Disappointed, relieved. His hand settled at her waist. Evelyn stepped back, but the crowd behind her left little space. Damian appeared beside them. Councilman. Hall removed his hand. No offense intended. Damian's voice remained quiet. Then none will be taken. Hall smiled too quickly. Of course. He left without finishing the drink in his hand. Evelyn looked at Damian. What did you say to him? Nothing. That was the problem, was it not? Men like Hall hear silence clearly. You enjoyed frightening him. I enjoyed watching him move his hand. They stood too close. Music drifted through the gallery. Damian's eyes lowered to her mouth, then returned to her face. Dance with me, he said. That was not listed in the contract. Neither was refusing every reasonable request. This is reasonable. It is public. She placed her hand in his. Damian moved with the confidence of someone who had learned long ago never to appear uncertain. His palm rested against her back. Her fingers touched his shoulder. They turned slowly beneath the lights. You are tense, he said. I am dancing with a man who has armed guards outside my daughter's school. 2 streets away. That does not improve the sentence. His hand shifted slightly. You are safe. You keep saying that as if repetition makes it true. No. Preparation makes it true. She looked into his eyes. And what happens when preparation fails? Something dark passed through his expression. It does not. The answer sounded less like confidence than prayer. After the gala, they drove to Atlantic City for a private dinner with 2 investors. Sophie remained at the estate with Rosa. The meeting lasted less than an hour. Damian spoke calmly. Evelyn watched men who owned banks and casinos study him before agreeing to terms they had resisted for weeks. On the way back to the car, the parking garage seemed nearly empty. Their footsteps echoed between concrete pillars. Damian's driver walked several paces ahead. Evelyn heard something scrape behind them. Damian turned. A man stepped from the shadow near a stairwell. The gun in his hand caught the overhead light. Everything happened too quickly for fear. Damian struck Evelyn in the chest with one arm, forcing her behind the armored car. The first shot shattered a side mirror. The driver reached inside his coat. Damian was already moving. He caught the attacker's wrist and drove it upward. The second shot struck the ceiling. Concrete dust fell around them. Damian twisted. Bone cracked. The gun hit the ground. He drove the man face first against the hood of the car, seized the back of his neck, and forced him down. 2 more vehicles entered the garage. Damian's men surrounded them. The attacker began to beg. "I did not know she would be here." Damian's face became something Evelyn had not seen inside the house. Empty, not furious. Worse than furious. He knelt beside the man. "Who sent you?" The attacker's breathing came in broken gasps. "No one." Damian pressed the injured wrist against the pavement. The man screamed. "Who sent you? I cannot tell you." "You can." Damian's voice was almost gentle. "You are choosing not to." One of his men opened a service door at the far end of the garage. "Take him downstairs," Damian said. Evelyn understood. She stepped forward. "Do not kill him." Every man in the garage looked at her. Damian remained still. Evelyn approached until she could see the blood on his knuckles. "He came here with a gun," Damian said. "I saw." "He fired at you. He fired at both of us." "That distinction means nothing to me." "It means something to me." Damian rose slowly. The attacker remained on the ground holding his broken wrist. Evelyn kept her eyes on Damian. "You promised criminal business would stay away from Sophie. She is not here." "I am." His jaw tightened. For several seconds the garage held its breath. Then Damian looked at his men. "Keep him alive." The attacker was dragged through the service door. Damian turned back to Evelyn. His hands moved over her shoulders and arms, checking for blood. "Did he touch you? No. Were you hit? No. Look at me. I am looking at you. No, you are staring through me." He placed one hand against the side of her face. His palm was warm. His fingers were trembling. That frightened her more than the gunshot. "I am not hurt," she said. Only then did she notice the blood on his hand. It was not his. During the drive back to Philadelphia, neither of them spoke. Evelyn sat beside the window and watched lights slide across the glass. Her body had begun to shake after the danger passed. Damian noticed. He removed his coat and placed it over her. She almost refused it. Instead, she pulled it closer. At the estate, Evelyn went directly upstairs. She locked herself in the bathroom and turned on the shower, though she did not step beneath the water. Her hands would not stop trembling. Damian waited outside the door. She could see the shadow of his shoes beneath it. "You said Sophie would be safe. She is. You said criminal business would not touch us. I said I would keep it away from her. Someone fired a gun at me. He will not do so again. That is not comforting." Silence filled the hallway. Evelyn pressed both palms against the sink. "This is your life. Men with guns in parking garages. Rooms people do not return from. You told me you were dangerous, but you did not tell me what standing beside you would cost." "I did not know they would move this soon. That is not an answer." "No." His voice became quieter. "It is not." Evelyn opened the door. Damian stood in the hallway with blood still drying at the edge of his cuff. For the first time, he did not look powerful. He looked like a man who had failed at the only promise he believed mattered. "If you invoke the safety clause," he said, "I will honor it. You would let us leave." "Yes. Tonight." "Yes." Evelyn imagined waking Sophie packing bags and driving into the city before dawn. She also imagined the gunman saying he had not known she would be there. Someone was watching Damian. Someone knew enough about his movements to attack him away from home. Leaving might not remove the danger. It might remove the protection. "I am not leaving tonight," she said. Damian's eyes searched her face. "This does not mean I trust you." "I know. It means I trust the men trying to kill you even less. That is usually how loyalty begins in my world. This is not loyalty, not yet." He walked away before she could answer. 3 nights later, Evelyn returned from work and found the house unusually quiet. Rosa stood in the kitchen with one hand over her mouth. Damian was speaking into his phone near the back entrance. "Where is he?" His voice was controlled, but his face was not. Rosa whispered Julian. Damian's younger brother had been found unconscious in a private apartment near Rittenhouse Square. An overdose. Damian ended the call and reached for his coat. "I am coming with you," Evelyn said. "No, he needs a doctor. I have one. He needs a hospital. He cannot go to St. Catherine's. Why? Because his name in the system creates questions." Evelyn stepped in front of him. "If he is unconscious after an overdose, he needs airway support imaging and continuous monitoring." "Not a man with a medical bag. I will handle it." "No, you will protect his reputation until he dies." Damian's expression hardened. "Move. You move." The room went still. Rosa closed her eyes. Evelyn held Damian's gaze. "Your brother may have minutes. You can threaten me after he is breathing." Damian remained motionless. Then he stepped aside. They reached the apartment in less than 10 minutes. Julian lay on the bathroom floor, pale and barely breathing. Evelyn dropped beside him. "Call an ambulance." One of Damian's men looked at Damian. Damian hesitated. Evelyn pressed 2 fingers to Julian's neck. "If you make me ask again, he may die while you are deciding." Damian took out his phone. The ambulance arrived 4 minutes later. At St. Catherine's, Julian was taken into emergency treatment under a private registration protocol. Evelyn remained with the trauma team until his breathing stabilized. When she entered the waiting area, Damian sat alone beneath a row of fluorescent lights. His hands were clasped between his knees. She placed a cup of coffee beside him. "He is alive." Damian closed his eyes. "For now," she added, "he needs treatment after this, real treatment. He has been to treatment. That is not the same as staying. He is my brother." "That does not change the sentence." Damian looked at her. Something passed between them. Recognition. The exhaustion of loving someone who repeatedly ran toward destruction. "You understand," he said. Evelyn thought of Raymond sitting at the kitchen table expecting rescue as if it were a daughter's duty. "Better than I want to." Damian lifted the coffee but did not drink it. "I should have listened sooner." "Yes." He looked almost surprised by the lack of comfort. "You do not soften anything. I spend my nights telling frightened people the truth before they run out of time, and during the day I sleep." A quiet laugh escaped him. It was the second time she had heard it. This time she did not turn away. In the weeks that followed, the house changed. Or perhaps Evelyn did. She stopped eating every meal at the hospital. She began sitting in the library while Sophie played chess with Damian. She learned that he disliked sweet coffee, read military history when he could not sleep, and never sat with his back to a door. Damian began asking about her shifts, not about patients, about her. "Did you eat eventually?" "That means no. It means hospital food should not legally count." A meal would appear in the kitchen when she returned. Sophie started leaving books outside Damian's study. He read every one. One morning, Evelyn came downstairs before sunrise and found Damian asleep on the sofa. Sophie was curled against his side beneath a blanket. A children's adventure novel lay open on his chest. One of his hands rested protectively near her shoulder without touching her. Evelyn stood in the doorway. Damian opened his eyes. Neither spoke. He looked down at Sophie, then back at Evelyn. There was something unguarded in his expression, not ownership, not obligation, fear. He was already afraid of losing a child who was not his. Evelyn turned away first. Later that afternoon, an envelope arrived at the hospital. There was no return address. Inside was a photograph of Evelyn and Sophie walking through the gates of Damian's estate. Sophie's face had been circled in red ink. Across the bottom, someone had written 6 words. "Wives and children bleed the easiest." Evelyn read the sentence 3 times before the words stopped looking like ink. "Wives and children bleed the easiest." The photograph shook between her fingers. Sophie stood beside her in the image, one hand wrapped around Evelyn's while they walked through the gates of the Vale estate. The picture had been taken from across the road. Sophie's face was small, clear, and circled in red. For one terrible second, the hospital corridor disappeared. Evelyn saw only her daughter leaving school, Sophie laughing near the library windows, Sophie asleep with a book beneath her cheek. Someone had watched her. Someone had stood close enough to take a photograph. Nathan found Evelyn near the staff elevators. "You look pale." She folded the image before he could see it. "I need 5 minutes. Do you want me to call security? No?" The answer came too quickly. Nathan glanced toward the windows. "Is this about the men outside?" Evelyn took out the second phone Damian had given her. "It is about why they are there." Damian answered before the first ring finished. "What happened?" No greeting, no question about why she was calling. He heard something in her silence. "I received an envelope." His voice changed. What was inside? A photograph of Sophie. The line became quiet. Evelyn looked around the corridor. Nurses passed with charts. A patient laughed behind a curtain. Somewhere nearby, an infant began to cry. Ordinary life continued around a sentence that had just broken hers apart. "There was a message," she said. "Read it." She did. Damian did not respond for several seconds. Then she heard movement on his end. A door opened. A man spoke. Damian silenced him with one word. "Where are you?" "At the hospital. Stay inside. I have patience. You have a daughter whose face was marked by someone who wants my attention. I know what the photograph means. No, Evelyn, you know what it says. I know what men like this intend." She pressed the phone closer. "Do not speak to me as if fear has made me stupid. I am speaking to you as if you are standing in a building with 6 public entrances." The elevator doors opened. 2 men in dark coats stepped out. Damian's security. Evelyn had not seen them enter. One moved toward her. "Doctor, we need to leave. I am in the middle of a shift. Your shift is over." She spoke into the phone. "You sent them before you called me. I sent them when you said Sophie." Evelyn closed her eyes. "Where is she?" "At the estate. Rosa is with her. The grounds are locked. I want to speak to her." "You will. From the car. I am not leaving without telling my department. You have 2 minutes. You do not give me 2 minutes in my own hospital." "Today I do." The line ended. Evelyn stood motionless, staring at the dark screen. Nathan had remained nearby. "You need to go," he said. She looked at him. He had not heard the conversation, but he understood enough. "I will cover your cases." "I hate this." "I know." She turned toward the trauma desk. Nathan caught her arm gently. "Eve." She stopped. "Whatever you are trying to prove by staying, prove it tomorrow." The drive to Chestnut Hill took 27 minutes. Evelyn counted everyone. She spoke to Sophie through a secure video call. Her daughter was sitting at the kitchen table with Rosa, eating apple slices and complaining about math homework. "Why did you leave work early?" Sophie asked. "I wanted to see you." "That is suspicious. Can a mother not miss her daughter?" "You saw me this morning." Rosa stepped behind Sophie and gave Evelyn a look that said the child knew nothing. Evelyn forced herself to smile. "I will be home soon." The gates were already closing when the vehicle entered the estate. Additional guards stood along the driveway. Damian waited inside the entrance hall. He had removed his jacket. His tie hung loose at his throat. The moment Evelyn stepped through the door, his eyes moved over her as if checking for blood. "Where is the envelope?" She handed it to him. He unfolded the photograph. The stillness that entered his face was more frightening than rage. "Who touched it? Me." Nathan may have seen the outside of the envelope, but not the picture. Anyone else? Damian looked at one of his men. "Take it to Carlo. I want Prince Fiber's camera angle distance every traffic image within 6 blocks of the gate." The man left. Evelyn moved toward the stairs. "Where are you going to Sophie? She is safe. I need to see her." Damian stepped aside. Sophie sat on the floor of her room building a city from wooden blocks. Evelyn crossed the space and pulled her into her arms. Sophie made a startled sound. "Mom, I cannot breathe." Evelyn loosened her hold. "Sorry. Did somebody die? No. Did somebody almost die?" Evelyn brushed hair away from her forehead. "No." Sophie studied her. "You are doing the voice." "What voice?" "The one you use when you tell me something is fine." Evelyn looked toward the open bedroom door. Damian stood outside, far enough away to give them privacy. "Something happened at work," she said. "It made me nervous, that is all." Was it dangerous? Not here. The answer tasted like a promise she had no right to make. Sophie looked past her at Damian. "Why are there more guards?" Damian entered slowly. "Because I am being careful. You are always careful. Today I am being more careful." Sophie frowned. "Am I going to school tomorrow?" "No." Evelyn turned. "We have not discussed that." "There is nothing to discuss." Sophie looked between them. Evelyn stood. "Rosa, could you stay with her?" Rosa nodded. Damian had already begun walking toward the hallway. Evelyn followed him into his study and closed the door. "You do not remove my daughter from school without asking me. She will not return until I know who took that photograph. You promised not to make decisions about Sophie. I promised to keep her safe. That is not the same thing. It is today." Evelyn stepped closer. "You cannot take over every part of our lives because someone frightened you." His eyes hardened. Someone threatened to bleed your daughter." I read the note, then stopped speaking as if this is a disagreement about parenting. That is exactly what this is. No, this is a security decision. She is my child, and she is under my protection. That does not make you her father. The word struck him. Evelyn saw it before he looked away. Not anger, pain, a clean, silent wound. His voice became cold. "Do not call me that. I did not. You use the word because you are acting like one whenever it suits you." He turned toward the windows. For a moment, Evelyn thought he would order her out. Instead, he placed both hands on the desk. "She does not leave the grounds. You cannot keep her locked inside. I can keep her alive. You do not know that." His shoulders stiffened. "I know what happens when protection fails." The room changed. The sentence was not about the photograph. Evelyn heard the history beneath it, but Damian closed the door before she could reach it. "Her lessons will continue here," he said. "I have already arranged a tutor." "You already arranged it?" "Yes, without asking me." "Yes." The calmness of his answer made her furious. "You are afraid, so you are controlling everything you can touch." Damian turned. "Fear has kept me alive. It is not the same as living. You are not here to tell me how to live. No, I am here because you trapped me in a contract and placed my daughter inside your war." His expression hardened. "I did not send that photograph, but your life brought it to my hospital." Silence followed. Evelyn regretted the cruelty of the words almost immediately. Damian did not defend himself. That made them heavier. He looked toward the framed chessboard on a side table where Sophie had left a game unfinished. "She stays home," he said. Evelyn folded her arms. "For 3 days. Then we review the threat together." 7, 4, 5, agreed. His eyes returned to hers. The fact that he had compromised should not have felt like victory. It felt like something more dangerous. Respect. The next 5 days changed the rhythm of the estate. Sophie's teacher arrived every morning at 9. Guards checked the vehicle before allowing it through the gate. Rosa moved through the house, pretending not to notice the armed men outside every window. Damian rarely slept. Evelyn knew because she rarely slept either. She would return from the hospital near midnight and find light beneath his study door. At 5 in the morning, she would hear him speaking quietly on the phone. The photograph had created a distance between them. Not because Evelyn trusted him less, because she understood him more. Damian did not tighten control to display power. He did it because uncertainty terrified him. That did not make it acceptable. It made it harder to hate. On the 6th morning, Sophie returned to school with discreet security placed 2 streets away. By noon, Damian's waterfront acquisition began to collapse. Evelyn learned about it from a television mounted above the nurses' station. A reporter stood in front of City Hall discussing documents that appeared to connect Vale Development Group to bribery, intimidation, and illegal surveillance of a competing contractor. The screen displayed Damian's photograph beside the words, "Criminal Conspiracy." Evelyn turned up the volume. The documents included bank transfers, signed authorizations, and private emails. Nathan stood beside her. "This is your husband's company." "Yes." "Are the accusations true? I do not know." He watched her face. "You believe him. I did not say that. You did not have to." Evelyn arrived home earlier than expected. 3 black vehicles were parked near the entrance. Men moved between the study and dining room carrying files. Damian stood in the kitchen with his back to her. His right hand was wrapped in a towel. Blood had soaked through the cloth. Rosa was kneeling on the floor collecting pieces of broken glass. "What happened?" Evelyn asked. Damian turned. "Nothing. You are bleeding on the floor." "I dropped a glass. Glass usually falls away from the hand." Rosa rose. "I will bring the medical kit." "I do not need one," Damian said. Evelyn removed her coat. "That sentence has never stopped me." She led him to the table and unwrapped the towel. A deep cut crossed his palm. This needs stitches. It needs pressure. It needs both. Damian remained still while she cleaned the wound. His men continued moving through the house, but none entered the kitchen. What happened to the deal, Evelyn asked. Someone released forged evidence. How convincing, convincing enough that 3 investors withdrew before lunch. She threaded the needle. This will hurt. I've had worse. That was not permission to move. He watched her work. Who has access to the documents? 6 people, and one of them created the forgery. Yes. Who discovered it, Marcus? Evelyn looked up. Your financial officer, my oldest advisor. How long has he worked with you? 14 years. She finished the first stitch. Do you trust him? Damian's gaze shifted toward the window. I did. The answer stayed with her. That evening the house filled with quiet tension. Phone calls ended when Evelyn entered rooms. Guards spoke in low voices. Damian's legal counsel arrived with boxes of records. Evelyn ate dinner with Sophie, helped with homework, and tried not to listen for the sound of breaking glass. At 10, she found Damian alone in the study. The desk was covered with documents. 2 lamps lit the room. The fireplace had gone cold. You need sleep, she said. I need to know who did this. Those goals are not enemies. They are tonight. Evelyn stepped inside. Show me. His eyes narrowed. This is not your concern. My daughter's face was circled in red because of your business. It became my concern. These records are complicated. I completed medical school while raising an infant. I can survive a spreadsheet. A faint trace of amusement moved across his face. Then it disappeared. He gestured toward the chair. Evelyn sat. For the next 3 hours she asked questions. Not as his wife, not as a frightened mother, as a physician examining a patient whose symptoms did not agree with the diagnosis. When did the first document appear? 3 weeks ago. Who found it, Marcus? Who verified the account numbers, Marcus? Who advised you not to inform the board, Marcus? Who controlled access to the internal signatures, Marcus, and 2 members of legal? Who benefits if the acquisition fails? Several people. Who benefits if you are blamed? Damian looked at her. She waited. His expression changed slowly. Not surprise. Recognition resisted too long. You suspected him, she said. I considered him. That is not the same thing. No, you did not want it to be him. Damian leaned back. Marcus was with me before the legitimate businesses existed. He built most of the financial structure. That does not make betrayal impossible. It makes it expensive, for him or for you. The question landed. Damian looked toward the shelves. There are very few people I trust. You have said that before. There are fewer tonight. Evelyn softened. Trust is not evidence. No, but neither is loyalty. He studied her face. You enjoy telling me things I dislike. I enjoy watching you hear them. A quiet breath left him. It might have been laughter. She gathered several pages and placed them in order. Who knew you would keep this private, everyone close to me? Who knew you would protect Julian's name at any cost? Damian went still. One of the forged logs placed him with a state official on the same night Julian had overdosed. The timeline depended on Damian refusing to reveal where he had actually been. At the hospital, with his brother. Evelyn looked at him. Whoever created this knew you would protect Julian even if your silence destroyed the deal. Damian's jaw tightened. Marcus arranged the private physician before you forced me to call an ambulance. He knew exactly how you handle family crises. Yes, and he knew you would hide the truth. Damian rose and crossed to the window. The city lights glowed far beyond the trees. I gave him everything. Evelyn remained seated. You gave him access. I gave him authority. That is not everything. His reflection looked back at her in the dark glass. There is no one I can speak to about this. The words were so quiet she almost missed them. Evelyn closed the file. You are speaking to me. You are here because of a contract. I am still here. The silence that followed felt different from all the others. Damian turned. For one suspended moment, the room held no crime boss and no purchased wife. Only 2 exhausted people sitting inside the wreckage created by those they had tried to save. The following afternoon, Evelyn entered Damian's study to return a book Sophie had borrowed. He was not there. She placed the book on the desk and noticed a photograph on a side table. A woman stood on a beach beside Damian. She had dark hair lifted by the wind and one hand resting against his chest. Between them stood a boy of about 6, smiling so widely that his eyes had nearly disappeared. Damian looked younger, not softer, happy. The boy held both their hands. Evelyn stared at the photograph until Rosa entered. "You found them?" Evelyn turned. "Who are they?" Rosa closed the study door. Claire and Benjamin. His wife and son Rosa nodded. "Where are they?" The question felt foolish the moment she asked it. No woman would allow her photograph to remain hidden in another wife's house unless she was gone. They died 8 years ago. Evelyn looked back at the boy. How Rosa's mouth tightened. A bomb beneath the family car. The room lost its warmth. It was meant for Damian. Rosa continued. He changed vehicles that morning because of a meeting. Claire took Benjamin to school. Evelyn could not look away from the child's face. How old was he? 6. The same age Sophie had been when Evelyn's marriage ended. Did they catch the person responsible? Yes. Rosa's answer held no mercy. Evelyn understood without asking what had happened afterward. He became this man because of them. No, Rosa said. He was already dangerous. Grief did not create that. It removed the parts that made danger feel human. She moved closer to the photograph. He stopped eating at this table. He closed half the house. He sent everyone away except those who refused to leave. Why keep the picture here? Because he visits this room when he cannot sleep. Rosa's eyes softened. He believes loving someone is the same as marking them for death. Evelyn thought of the photograph of Sophie. She understood now why Damian had looked wounded when she used the word father. The next morning she found him alone in the breakfast room. Coffee sat untouched beside him. I saw the photograph. Damian became completely still. Rosa told me, "You should have asked me. Would you have answered no?" That is why I asked Rosa. His eyes cooled. "You do not have the right to search through my past. I was not searching. You were in my study. To return Sophie's book." His hand tightened around the cup. Evelyn sat across from him. "I am not going to pretend I do not know. You can." "No." He looked toward the windows. After a long silence, he said her name was Claire. Evelyn waited. "My son was Benjamin. Tell me about them." Damian looked at her as if she had asked him to reopen a grave. "No, Damian, no one asks that. They should. They ask how they died. I am asking how they lived." His eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, the control had thinned. Claire read terrible mystery novels. She always knew the killer by the 3rd chapter and pretended surprise at the end. Evelyn smiled faintly. Benjamin wanted to become an astronaut. Did he like science? He liked the helmet. A fragile warmth entered Damian's voice. He was afraid of elevators. He said rockets were different because elevators did not have fire beneath them. Sophie ran past the doorway laughing as Rosa chased her with a forgotten scarf. Damian watched her. His expression broke. Only slightly. "Enough." The last thing I said to him was impatient, he continued. He wanted me to help build something before school. I was late. Evelyn said nothing. I told him we would talk when I came home. His voice roughened. I did not come home in time. Evelyn reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "You did not kill them. I built the life that did. That is not the same thing. It feels the same at 3 in the morning. His hand remained beneath hers. He did not hold it. He did not pull away. That night, Damian found Evelyn in the library. She was standing near the shelves with a book open in her hands. He stopped several feet away. "Thank you. For what?" "For making me say their names." Evelyn closed the book. "They deserve to be spoken. No one has asked me to remember them as people in years. They ask about the attack. They ask what I did afterward. Not who they were, no." He moved closer. Evelyn could see the faint scar near his jaw, the tiredness beneath his eyes, and the restraint in every breath. "You can love what you lost without refusing everything that comes after," she said. His gaze lowered to her mouth. "And what exactly comes after?" The air changed. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the book. "I do not know." Damian lifted one hand. It stopped before touching her face. For the first time, Evelyn saw uncertainty in him, not fear of rejection, fear of wanting. Sophie's voice called from upstairs. "Mom." The moment disappeared. Damian stepped back. "Good night, Evelyn." The use of her full name felt more intimate than a kiss. 2 days later, Sophie appeared in Damian's study carrying a sheet of paper. "I made this for school." He looked up from his desk. "What is it, my family at home?" The drawing showed 4 figures in front of the Vale estate. Sophie stood beside Evelyn. Rosa stood near the kitchen window. Damian had been drawn taller than everyone else, wearing a black suit with arms almost as long as his body. "Why am I in it?" Damian asked. "Because you live here. That does not make someone family." Sophie frowned. "No, staying does." Evelyn stood in the doorway. Damian looked at her over Sophie's head. Something passed between them that neither was prepared to name. He placed the drawing on his desk. "May I keep it? You have to hang it up, where somewhere you can see it." That evening, he placed it in a dark wooden frame beside the photograph of Claire and Benjamin. Not in front of them, beside them. Evelyn noticed and said nothing. At the end of the 8th month, she was called into the hospital administrator's office. Dr. Charles Monroe stood behind his desk with the legal director beside him. A laptop faced the empty chair. "Sit down, Evelyn." She did. Monroe turned the screen toward her. The headline filled the page. "The mob bosses bought bride doctor, traded marriage for father's gambling debt." For a moment, Evelyn could not breathe. The article contained private clauses from the contract. Her compensation, the canceled debt, the separate bedrooms, her right to leave. It accused Damian of using donations to St. Catherine's to purchase her cooperation. It questioned her ethics, her judgment, and her fitness to practice medicine. Then she saw Sophie's name, her school, a photograph of her entering the estate. Evelyn's fear became cold and precise. Who published this? The original story appeared through an independent news site, the legal director said. Larger outlets are already repeating it. "My daughter is 8. We know, you know, but her school is still visible. We have contacted the publisher. Contact them again." Monroe folded his hands. "Until the hospital determines whether any donations influenced your professional conduct, you will be placed on temporary administrative leave." Evelyn stared at him. "You believe this, I believe we must investigate. My father owed money. I entered a private agreement. No patient information was involved. The article claims Mr. Vale's charitable contributions affected hospital decisions. That is false. Then the review will establish that." Noise rose beyond the office. Evelyn looked through the glass wall. Reporters were gathering outside the main entrance. She took out the second phone. Damian answered immediately. "I know. My daughter's name is in it. I know. Her school is in it." His voice changed. "I know." Evelyn gripped the phone. "Tell me you can stop this. I can. How I need you to trust me." She looked again at the article, at the details only someone close to them could have known. For months, Evelyn had resisted every order, questioned every protection, and kept one hand near the door. Now the door had opened beneath her feet. She closed her eyes. "Okay," she said. "I trust you." The words left Evelyn's mouth before she could measure their weight. "I trust you." Silence moved through the phone. For 8 months she had challenged every order Damian gave, questioned every man he placed at a gate, and kept one hand close to the door in case she needed to take Sophie and run. Now, with reporters gathering outside the hospital and her daughter's name spreading across the internet, she had placed something far more dangerous than obedience in his hands. "Faith," Damian answered quietly. "Go to the private exit. Carlo is waiting." "What about Sophie? She is already being brought home." "From school? Yes." Evelyn stood. Dr. Monroe moved around the desk. "You cannot leave until legal finishes speaking with you. My daughter's school address has been published. We understand the urgency." "No, you understand liability." She picked up her bag. "My daughter comes first." The legal director stepped toward the door. "If you leave now, it may affect the review." Evelyn looked at him. "Then write down that I left to protect an 8-year-old child from reporters your legal department failed to keep away from this building." No one stopped her. Carlo waited near the service entrance beside a black vehicle. 2 hospital security officers held reporters behind a metal barrier, but cameras turned the moment Evelyn appeared. Questions followed her across the pavement. "Dr. Hart, did Damian Vale purchase your marriage? Did hospital money cancel your father's debt? Is your daughter living inside a criminal compound?" Evelyn kept walking. A reporter stepped around the barrier and pushed a microphone toward her face. "Did you knowingly expose your child to organized crime?" Carlo moved between them. The reporter stumbled backward. Do not touch him, Evelyn said. Carlo opened the car door. I was not going to. You look like you were considering it. I consider many things. She entered the vehicle. The doors locked before the reporters reached the curb. Damian called again as the car moved away. I need you to answer one question. What did anyone outside your attorney know the contract existed know? Did your father ever see a complete copy? Evelyn thought of Raymond sitting at the kitchen table while Marissa reviewed the agreement. He saw the folder. I do not know how much he read. Did he receive proof the debt was canceled? Yes. A written notice. From my office, I think so. Damian was silent. What are you thinking? That the article contains language from a draft that was never filed with the court? Evelyn looked through the darkened window. Who had access? Very few people. Marcus? Yes. The name did not surprise her. That frightened her. Do not confront him alone, she said. I am never alone. That is not what I meant. I know. Evelyn heard another voice near him, then a door closing. Damian. Yes. You asked me to trust you. I did. Then do not turn this into blood before we know the truth. His answer came after a pause. I will find the truth first. It was not the promise she wanted. It was the only one he was willing to give. At the estate, Sophie sat at the kitchen table with Rosa beside her. Her backpack remained on both shoulders as if she had not yet decided whether she was staying. Evelyn crossed the room and pulled her close. Sophie did not complain this time. They made me leave school, she said. I know. There were people outside with cameras, I know. One of them shouted Grandpa's name. Evelyn closed her eyes. Rosa placed a glass of water near her. Sophie looked up. Did you marry Damian because Grandpa owed him money? The question entered the room without warning. Rosa turned toward the stove. Evelyn felt Damian behind her before she heard him. He had entered through the side door. His coat was wet from the rain. 2 men waited in the hallway, but he came into the kitchen alone. Evelyn knelt in front of Sophie. Yes. Sophie's face changed. Not shock, understanding. Children rarely missed the truth. Adults only taught them to doubt what they had already seen. Did he make you? Sophie asked. Evelyn looked at Damian. He did not look away. He gave me a choice, she said carefully, but it did not feel like a real choice. Sophie turned to him. That was wrong. Damian's expression remained still. Yes, no excuse followed, no explanation about the debt, the waterfront deal, or the danger surrounding Raymond. Only the truth. Sophie studied him. Are you sorry? Yes. Would you do it again? The room became silent. Damian looked at Evelyn before answering. No. Something shifted inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the first stone moved. Sophie removed her backpack. Is Mom going to jail? No, Evelyn said. Are you? Damian pulled out the chair across from her. Not today. That is not comforting. No. He agreed. It is not. For the rest of the afternoon, the estate became a command center. Damian's legal team occupied the dining room. Security specialists traced the original article through servers' payment accounts and encrypted messages. Marissa arrived with copies of every version of the marriage agreement. Evelyn refused to remain upstairs. This concerns my career and my daughter, she said. I am part of it. Damian stood at the head of the table. This is not a hospital problem. In a hospital, people are required to document their crimes. Several men looked down to hide their reactions. Damian pulled out the chair beside him. Sit. Evelyn sat because this time it was an invitation, disguised as an order. The final contract contained 12 pages. The article quoted a sentence from page 4 describing separate bedrooms and public conduct. Marissa compared it with her files. That wording is not in the signed agreement. Evelyn leaned closer. What do you mean? The final version says private accommodations. This says separate residential quarters. Damian's attorney opened another folder. That phrase appeared in the second draft. Who received it? Damian asked. The attorney checked the distribution record. Your office. Marcus, Dr. Hart's attorney. Raymond Hart received only the debt cancellation notice. Marissa shook her head. My office never sent the draft electronically. I printed one copy and destroyed it after signing. Damian looked toward Carlo. Find Marcus. Carlo left. Evelyn touched the line on the page. If Marcus leaked the contract, why include a draft phrase? Because he did not expect anyone to notice, Damian said. Or because he wanted us to. Damian looked at her. Why to point suspicion toward someone with early access? His attorney nodded slowly. Marissa, or Raymond, Evelyn said. The name hurt before anyone responded. Damian's face became unreadable. I want every payment connected to the publisher traced. One of the analysts turned his laptop. The site received money through 3 shell companies. The last transfer originated from an account in the Cayman Islands. Marcus controls several offshore structures, Damian's attorney said. So do you, Evelyn replied. Every eye at the table moved toward her. Damian held her gaze. She is correct. The investigation continued through the night. By morning, the article had been copied across dozens of sites. St. Catherine's announced Evelyn's temporary leave in a brief public statement. The language did not accuse her of wrongdoing, but it placed her name beside the word investigation. Grant Miller called at 9:15. Evelyn had not spoken to her former husband in 6 months. He lived in Maryland with his second wife and saw Sophie several times a year when his schedule allowed. She answered because ignoring him would give him something else to use. What do you want, Grant? I saw the news. So did everyone. You married a mobster. I married a man with a dangerous reputation. That is how you are describing this. I am not discussing my marriage with you. You moved our daughter into his house. You approved the address change. You told me he was a businessman. He is. Eve, there are armed men outside Sophie's school. They are there because her name was published. Her name was published because of him. Evelyn had no answer that would make the sentence less true. Grant continued. I am filing for temporary custody. Her grip tightened around the phone. You have missed half your scheduled weekends this year. That does not mean I will let her live inside a criminal organization. She is safe here. You cannot possibly know that. I know she is safer with me than with a father who remembers her when a headline reminds him. He hung up. The custody papers arrived before noon. Evelyn read them in the library while Sophie played chess with Rosa upstairs. Grant claimed that Evelyn had knowingly exposed their daughter to violence, criminal activity surveillance, and public scandal. He requested immediate removal of Sophie from Pennsylvania. Damian stood near the window. He will not take her. You cannot promise that. Yes, I can. Evelyn looked up. You are not threatening a judge. No. You are not threatening Grant. No. You are not arranging for him to disappear. Damian's eyes narrowed. You think very little of me. I think accurately of you. He accepted the blow. I have already hired a custody attorney. Grant's visitation record, financial history, and previous statements are being collected. You hired one without asking me. You were speaking to him. Damian, I am not making the decision for you. I am preparing the defense. She wanted to argue. Then she looked down at Grant's petition and saw Sophie described as property to be relocated. What else? Your home here has documented security. Sophie has private educational support. There is no evidence of criminal activity near her living quarters. That sentence should not comfort me. It does not comfort me either. Evelyn studied him. He had not slept. A shadow darkened his jaw, and his shirt had been buttoned incorrectly near the collar. Did you eat? No. That means you are making decisions while exhausted. So are you. I am a physician. It is practically a licensing requirement. His mouth moved slightly. Then Carlo entered. We found Marcus. Damian's face changed at once. We're at his apartment. He says he has been waiting for your call. Bring him to the river property. Evelyn stood. I am coming. No, you promise truth first. You will see the evidence when I return. That is not trust. That is a report. This meeting may become dangerous. It became dangerous when my daughter's name entered it. Damian stepped closer. I will not place you in that room. You placed me in this life. The words struck cleanly. He looked away first. 2 hours later, Evelyn rode beside him toward an unfinished tower along the Delaware River. The building had been part of the waterfront acquisition before the investors withdrew. Concrete columns rose into a gray sky. Wind moved through floors without walls. Marcus waited on the 10th level beside a temporary table. He wore a blue suit and no coat. His calmness looked rehearsed. I wondered how long it would take, he said. Damian approached without greeting him. Carlo and 2 men remained near the stairwell. Evelyn stood beside Damian's attorney. Marcus looked at her. The doctor came. She has a name, Damian said. I know her name. Everyone does now. Damian placed a folder on the table. Payments to the publisher, server access records, Copies of the forged authorizations, messages to Victor Salerno's organization. Marcus did not touch the folder. You spent 14 years teaching me how you think, and you still failed. Did I? Marcus looked toward the river. The waterfront deal is dead. The banks are gone. Your wife has lost her position. Her former husband wants the child. Every weakness you tried to hide is now public. Damian's hands remained at his sides. Why, Marcus laughed softly. You inherited fear. I built the system that turned it into money. You were paid. I was useful. You were family. Marcus's expression hardened. Family sits beside you at the table. Useful men stand behind your chair. Evelyn watched Damian absorb the accusation. Marcus continued. I created the accounts, the legitimate companies, the political relationships. You walked into rooms and men feared your name. They never saw the person who made that name profitable. You could have left and become what another accountant with stories no one believed. You could have asked for more. I wanted what you would never give. Control. Recognition. The word echoed through the unfinished floor. Damian opened the folder. You fabricated evidence to destroy the company. I removed you from something I built. You threatened a child. Marcus looked at Evelyn. I used pressure. Damian moved before anyone else did. He crossed the distance and drove Marcus against a concrete pillar. Carlos stepped forward, then stopped. Damian's hand closed around Marcus's throat. You circled her face. Marcus struggled for breath. It was ink. Damian struck him. Blood appeared at the corner of Marcus's mouth. Evelyn saw the man from the parking garage and Damian's expression, the empty face, the place where mercy could not enter. She stepped closer. Damian. He did not move. Look at me. His grip tightened. Damian. He turned his head. Evelyn held his gaze. If you kill him, Sophie will learn what you do when someone hurts the people you love. Marcus coughed beneath Damian's hand. Evelyn continued. She will learn that violence is the only language this family speaks. For several seconds, nothing moved except the wind. Then, Damian released him. Marcus collapsed to one knee. 2 federal investigators emerged from the enclosed stairwell. Marcus looked from them to Damian. Understanding reached him slowly. You brought law enforcement into your building. Damian wiped blood from his knuckles. I brought witnesses. You think this makes you legitimate, no? Marcus laughed through the blood. You think she changed you? Evelyn answered before Damian could. No. He changed his decision. The investigators placed Marcus under arrest for fraud, extortion, conspiracy, witness, intimidation, and financial crimes connected to the forged records. As they led him away, Marcus looked back. You will regret letting me live. Damian's voice remained calm. You will regret every year that follows. The evidence was released that evening. The original publisher issued a retraction. Larger outlets followed with corrections. St. Catherine's announced that no evidence connected Evelyn's marriage to hospital donations or patient care. The statement cleared her. It did not erase what had happened. Reporters still waited near the estate. Sophie still woke from nightmares when cameras flashed outside the gates. Grant's petition remained active until a judge reviewed the evidence. The court hearing took place 4 days later. Grant's attorney spoke about organized crime, public danger, and armed security. Evelyn's attorney presented years of missed visits, unpaid expenses, and messages in which Grant declined time with Sophie because of work. The judge reviewed the threat assessment, the estate security records, and the evidence that Marcus had deliberately targeted Evelyn and Sophie. The emergency petition was denied. Grant received no additional custody. Outside the courthouse, Evelyn found Damian waiting near the car. He had not entered the hearing because his presence might have harmed her case. Sophie stays with you, he said. With us. The correction escaped before she could stop it. Damian looked at her. Evelyn looked away. That night, Sophie woke crying. Damian reached her room before Evelyn did. He sat on the edge of the bed while Sophie held the sleeve of his shirt. I saw the cameraman, she whispered. He cannot enter the house. What if he does? Then he will not reach you. Evelyn stood in the doorway. Sophie's breathing slowed. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Damian tried to move, but her hand remained closed around his sleeve. She asked me not to leave, he said quietly. She trusts you. That is the problem. No, Marcus was the problem. The people who threatened her were the problem. They threatened her because of me. Evelyn heard the decision forming inside him. Do not decide anything tonight. Damian looked down at Sophie's hand. He did not answer. The final piece of the betrayal arrived the next morning. One of Damian's analysts found an image sent months earlier from Raymond's phone to a gambling associate. It showed one page of the marriage agreement. The page contained the same draft wording used in the article. Raymond had photographed it at the kitchen table before Evelyn signed the final copy. He had wanted proof that his debt was being erased. The image passed through 3 people before reaching Marcus. Evelyn drove to South Philadelphia alone. Raymond opened the door wearing an old sweater and an expression already shaped like an apology. "I did not know what they would do. You sent a photograph of my contract. I only wanted proof. Proof for whom a man at the club. He did not believe Vale canceled everything. You showed my private agreement to a gambler so you could impress him. I was not trying to hurt you. You never are." Raymond flinched. "That is how you avoid responsibility. You never mean to hurt anyone. You only lie, steal, gamble, and wait for someone else to survive the consequences. I am sick, Eve. Then get treatment. I need your help." "No." The word surprised both of them. Raymond stepped closer. "You are my daughter, and Sophie is mine." Evelyn's voice broke, but she continued. "You placed her name in the hands of men who used it against us. I will not rescue you again. I am sorry. I know." She looked at the man she had spent her entire life trying to save. "Sorry is what you feel. Change is what you do." She left him standing in the doorway. When Evelyn returned to the estate, Damian was not in his study. The house was unusually quiet. Rosa would not meet her eyes. Evelyn climbed the stairs. 2 suitcases stood outside her bedroom. One belonged to her. The other belonged to Sophie. A cold understanding entered her chest. She went downstairs and found Damian in the study. Snow had begun falling beyond the windows. On his desk lay a canceled debt, the deed to a townhouse and divorce papers already signed in his precise handwriting. Damian stood beside the fireplace. "The contract ends tonight. It ends next month. I changed the terms. You cannot change a marriage because you are afraid. I can when staying married to me puts a target on your daughter." Evelyn looked at the papers. "The debt gone permanently. The settlement in your account, the house yours, and you packed our bags, yes." She looked at the framed drawing on the wall. 4 figures beneath a yellow sun. Sophie had drawn Damian beside them close enough that their hands touched. For months Evelyn had imagined leaving this house. She had imagined quiet mornings without guards, hospital shifts, without drivers, and a life where danger did not sit across from her at breakfast. Now the door stood open. She felt no relief. Damian pushed the divorce papers toward her. No obligation remains, no debt, no contract, no reason to stay. Evelyn picked up the pen. He watched her hand move toward the signature line. "You wanted your freedom," he said. "I did." The pen stopped above the page. She looked into his eyes. "But you never asked what I wanted to do with it." The pen remained suspended above the page. Damian did not move. Snow pressed against the study windows, softening the dark grounds beyond the glass. The fire behind him had burned low, leaving long shadows across the walls. Evelyn looked at the signature line, then at the name already written beneath it, Damian Vale. The man who had once placed a contract in front of her and called it a choice had now signed away every claim he possessed. The debt was gone. The settlement belonged to her. A secure home waited in her name. She could take Sophie upstairs, close the suitcases, and leave before morning. No guard would stop her. No lawyer would call. No threat would follow. For the first time since she had entered her father's kitchen 11 months earlier, Evelyn was completely free. She placed the pen on the desk. Damian's jaw tightened. "Sign it." "No." His eyes held hers. "You asked for freedom. I asked for a choice. I am giving you one." "No. You packed our belongings. You arranged another house. You signed the papers before speaking to me. You decided leaving was best, then built the entire decision around us. I removed every obligation. You replaced one kind of control with another." His face hardened. "This is not control. You are still deciding where Sophie and I should live. You are still deciding what kind of danger we are allowed to accept. You are still making choices alone and calling it protection. Because you are not thinking clearly." The words silenced the room. Evelyn stepped closer. "There he is." Damian's expression shifted. "The man who believes he becomes the only rational person whenever he is afraid. I am not afraid. You packed an 8-year-old child's books in the middle of the night. I am preventing another attack. You are running from one." His voice dropped. Marcus knew where she went to school. He knew where you worked. He reached inside this house through people I trusted, and now he is in custody. There will be others. There are always others. Exactly. Damian crossed to the windows. Beyond them, snow gathered over the stone terrace where Sophie had drawn pictures with chalk during the fall. I cannot promise this will never happen again. I never asked you to. You should. That would be asking for a lie. He turned toward her. You do not understand what it means to stay. I understand armed guards, threats reporters, and men with guns in parking garages. You understand what I allowed you to see. Evelyn held his gaze. Then show me the rest. No. Why? Because knowing more will not make you safer. It will make me informed. It will make you part of it. I became part of it when you used my father's debt to put your ring on my hand. The words landed between them. Damian looked at the ring. Evelyn still wore it. You should hate me for that. Sometimes I do. His face changed, though only slightly. She continued, before he could retreat behind silence. I hate the way you cornered me. I hate that you investigated Sophie. I hate that you thought money and fear gave you the right to decide what happened to my life. Then leave. I am not finished. Damian became still. Evelyn moved around the desk until nothing stood between them. I hate that you think guilt is the same thing as responsibility. Guilt keeps you awake. Responsibility requires you to change. His eyes narrowed. You believe I have not changed. I believe you are trying. I also believe you expect one good decision to erase every bad one. Letting you leave is not a good decision. It is the necessary one. For whom? For Sophie. No. Sophie asked you not to leave her room. She is a child. She is also the person you pretend this is for. Damian looked away. Evelyn studied the tension in his shoulders. You are not sending us away because you think we will be safer. That is exactly why. No, you are sending us away because she trusts you, and now you have something to lose. Silence answered her. Evelyn stepped closer. You lost Claire and Benjamin. You survived when they did not. Every time Sophie reaches for you, part of you is back in that car before the explosion. Damian's face emptied. Do not speak about them. I am not using them against you. You do not know what you are saying. I know you believe distance can do what control failed to do. You think if you push us out first, our absence will hurt less than losing us later. His voice became rough. You think this is about pain? I think everything you do is about pain. He crossed the space between them so quickly that Evelyn's breath caught. He did not touch her. He stood close enough that she could see the anger in his eyes and the fear beneath it. You have no idea what it is to identify your son by the shoes you tied that morning. The words broke from him. Evelyn did not move. You have no idea what it is to stand beside a hospital bed while someone tells you there is not enough left to save. You do not know what it is to understand that every enemy you created, every order you gave, every man you frightened led to that room. His breathing turned uneven. I went home afterward and found Benjamin's breakfast on the table. His cup was still beside the sink. Claire's book was open on the sofa. The house looked exactly as it had that morning, except the people inside it were gone. Evelyn's eyes burned. Damian looked past her, seeing another room and another winter. I promised myself no one would ever become that important again. And then Sophie moved into your house. His face tightened. And you, he said. The confession was barely louder than the fire. Evelyn felt it in her chest. Damian stepped away. That is why you must leave. No. He looked at her. You do not get to confess that you love us and use it as a reason to disappear. I did not say love. You did not need to. He turned toward the desk. Evelyn reached for his hand. Damian froze. His fingers were cold. She held them anyway. I will not stay because of my father. The debt is gone. I will not stay because of the money. It is already yours. I will not stay because Sophie has become attached to you. His eyes lifted to hers. Then why? Evelyn took a breath. Because somewhere between hating the guards outside my hospital and watching you learn chess openings for an 8-year-old, this stopped feeling like a prison. That is not enough. No, it is not. She released his hand. Staying does not mean pretending you are harmless. You are not. It does not mean approving of everything you have done. I do not. It does not mean accepting your world exactly as it is. Damian's expression cooled. You want me to become someone else. I want you to become someone who does not confuse love with possession. He said nothing. I want you to stop making decisions for Sophie unless there is an immediate threat and no time to speak to me. I want you to tell me the truth about danger instead of deciding how much I can handle. I want Julian in real treatment, not hidden in another apartment with another private doctor. He agreed to enter a facility. Good. I have already begun separating the legitimate businesses from the gambling rooms. Evelyn studied him. When after Raymond's debt? Why did you not tell me I did not do it for praise? That was not the question. Damian looked toward the papers. I did not want another father placing his daughter in the same position. The answer softened something inside her. Not enough to erase the past, enough to let the future exist. The gaming rooms close, she said. The predatory loans end. The men who threaten families do not remain on your payroll. You are giving orders, now I am setting conditions. For staying. For considering staying. A faint shadow of humor touched his eyes. You negotiate aggressively. I learned from a difficult man. Damian looked at the unsigned papers. And what else? No more contracts between us. Agreed. No hidden arrangements involving my career, my home, or Sophie. Agreed. You do not buy property in my name without speaking to me. I believed you would need somewhere secure. You believed correctly. You still should have asked. His mouth tightened. Agreed. When you are afraid, you say you are afraid. Damian's face closed. That is unnecessary. It is essential. I do not discuss fear. You are discussing it now. I am arguing with you. Sometimes those things resemble each other. He recognized his own words from their first drive after the courthouse. A quiet breath left him. Evelyn stepped closer. You asked what happens if preparation fails. This is what happens. We speak. We decide together. We do not pack suitcases in the dark. Damian's gaze moved across her face. What if I cannot give you the life you deserve? You do not decide what I deserve. What if staying gets you killed? What if leaving does not save me? His eyes darkened. Evelyn continued. I work in an emergency room. I know what safety looks like when people worship it too much. They stop living. They stop loving. They reduce every possibility until nothing can hurt them because nothing can reach them. That is not the same. It is exactly the same. Damian looked toward Sophie's drawing. What happens if you regret this, then I tell you. And if you leave later, you let me. The answer hurt him. She saw it clearly, but he nodded. Yes, no threat, no condition, no request for another year. Only permission he finally understood was not his to give. Evelyn looked down at their hands. What happens if I leave tonight? Damian's voice became quiet. You take the house, the settlement, and every protection you want. No one follows you without your consent. Your father's debt remains canceled. Your position at the hospital remains yours if they reinstate you. And you, I survive it. The answer was simple. It was also the first proof that he was giving her a real choice. Evelyn lifted her hand to his face. Damian went still beneath her touch. I noticed you from the beginning, she said. His eyes searched hers. I noticed that you washed your own coffee cup even though this house is full of people who would do it for you. I noticed that you left the hallway light on when I worked late. I noticed you stood outside Sophie's room after her nightmares without entering because you did not want to frighten her. His hand settled lightly around her wrist. I noticed the way you looked at Claire and Benjamin's photograph when you thought no one was watching. I noticed that you listened when I asked you to keep a man alive even though every part of you wanted revenge. I nearly killed Marcus, but you did not. Because you were there. No, because you chose not to. His thumb moved once against her wrist. Evelyn's voice softened. I was paying attention, Damian, the entire time. He closed his eyes for one brief second. When he opened them, nothing remained between them except the truth. I was paying attention too. Her breath caught. To what? To the way you count exits whenever you enter a room. To how you touch Sophie's hair when you are worried but do not want her to know. To the fact that you drink coffee cold because you forget it exists the moment someone needs you. Evelyn almost smiled. That is not romantic. I am inexperienced. You were married before. I was different before. His gaze lowered to her mouth. I noticed that you argue with me more when you are frightened. I noticed you stand between Sophie and every danger, even when the danger is me. I noticed the first night you stopped locking your bedroom door. Evelyn had not realized he knew. I still lock it sometimes, I know. Does that offend you, no? His answer came without hesitation. It reminds me that trust is not something I can demand. The last defense inside her gave way. There are 4 weeks left on the agreement. There is no agreement. Then what are we doing? Damian lifted one hand toward her face, then stopped before touching her. He waited. For the first time, he said, "Whatever you choose." Evelyn closed the distance. "I choose to stay." She kissed him before fear could speak for either of them. The first touch of his mouth was careful, almost restrained. Damian held himself still, as if one sudden movement might remind her who he had been when this began. Evelyn gripped the front of his shirt and kissed him again. His control broke. One hand moved around her waist. The other cradled the back of her neck. He kissed her with 11 months of silence, restraint, anger, and hunger held inside it. There were no cameras, no investors, no witnesses beyond the photographs on the wall. Nothing required her to remain. Nothing required him to let her go. When they separated, Damian rested his forehead against hers. "You should know," he said, "I am not good at this. At marriage, at having something I cannot command." Evelyn breathed against his mouth. "Then consider this continuing education." A knock sounded at the study door. Neither of them moved. Sophie entered before receiving permission. She wore striped pajamas and carried the stuffed rabbit she had owned since infancy. Her eyes moved from Evelyn to Damian, then to the papers on the desk. "Why are my suitcases outside?" Evelyn stepped away. "We thought we might be leaving." "Are we?" "No." Sophie looked at Damian. "Is he leaving?" "This is his house," Evelyn said. "That was not my question." Damian crouched in front of her. "I am staying." Sophie studied him. "Are you going to make Mom marry you again? No good." She looked at Evelyn. "Are you staying because you want to?" "Yes." Sophie considered the answer, then nodded. "Good. We have a chess tournament Saturday." Damian glanced at Evelyn. "A tournament." "She invited 2 girls from school," Evelyn said. "I was not informed." Sophie hugged the rabbit closer. "Mom says you need to stop controlling everything." A sound escaped Evelyn before she could hide it. Damian looked at Sophie with grave seriousness. "Your mother has many opinions. She is usually right. That remains under review." Sophie walked toward the door. "Do not send my bags anywhere. My science project is inside one." When she left, Damian looked at Evelyn. "She heard more than we realized. She always does." His gaze moved toward the hallway. "She asked whether you stayed because you wanted to." "Yes. I should have asked first. You are asking now." Damian looked at her. "Do you want to stay?" Evelyn placed her hand in his. "Yes." The suitcases returned upstairs. The divorce papers remained unsigned. Evelyn did not move into Damian's room that night. Neither of them pretended one conversation had erased the way their marriage began. Trust did not become simple because love had finally been named. They began again slowly. Damian told her when security reports changed. Evelyn told him when the guards became too visible. They argued over Sophie's school route, Damian's habit of assigning drivers without asking, and Evelyn's refusal to rest after long shifts. Sometimes Damian withdrew into silence. Sometimes Evelyn carried problems alone until exhaustion turned them into anger. But now they returned to the conversation. Julian entered a rehabilitation facility outside Pittsburgh. Damian visited every Sunday, even when Julian refused to see him. He stopped sending money directly and allowed the treatment team to set boundaries he could not manipulate. Raymond entered a recovery program 3 months later. Evelyn did not immediately welcome him back. She required proof in actions, not apologies. St. Catherine's reinstated her after completing the review. She returned to the emergency department without Damian's guard standing at the entrance. One remained in a parked car across the street, discreet enough that patients never noticed. Evelyn noticed. For the first time, she did not mind. Damian closed the betting rooms connected to Raymond's debt and ended the lending operation that had trapped desperate families. He sold several Atlantic City interests and moved Vale Security toward legitimate contracts. The organization did not become innocent overnight. Damian did not become harmless. But the violence surrounding his name began to narrow instead of spread. 6 months after the contract ended, he brought Evelyn to the ballroom where they had attended their first public gala. The room was empty except for Rosa and Sophie near the windows. No reporters waited outside. No investors watched. Damian handed Evelyn a blank sheet of paper. She looked at it. What is this, a new agreement? There is nothing written on it. That is the point. He lowered himself to one knee. For once, Damian Vale looked uncertain in a room he could have owned. The first time I asked you to marry me, I gave you terms. He opened a small black box. A simple diamond ring rested inside. This time you write them. Evelyn looked at Sophie, who was pretending to examine the curtains while wiping tears from her face. Then she looked at Damian. My first condition is that you stop turning emotional conversations into business negotiations. That may require time. My second condition is honesty. You have it. My third condition is that this marriage belongs equally to both of us. Damian held her gaze. It does. Evelyn smiled. Then yes. 1 year later she stood with him in the study after a small wedding ceremony. 2 framed pictures hung beside each other. The first showed Claire and Benjamin on the beach. The second was Sophie's newest drawing. Evelyn wore a white dress. Damian stood beside her in a black suit. Sophie had drawn herself between them, holding both their hands. Rosa stood nearby beneath a yellow sun. Above the house were 4 stars. Evelyn pointed to them. Why 4? Sophie touched the first 2. Those are Claire and Benjamin. Damian became still. Sophie touched the others. And those are for people we have not met yet. Evelyn looked at Damian. For years he had believed the future was simply another place where loss waited. Now his hand closed around hers. Not tightly, not to prevent her from leaving, only to remind himself that she was there. Damian had once forced Evelyn Hart into his world because power was the only language he trusted. He had bought 12 months of her life believing a contract could create stability and fear could create loyalty. But when the debt disappeared, the agreement ended, and every locked door finally opened. Evelyn remained beside him. Not because she owed him, not because she feared him, not because he had made leaving impossible. She stayed because he had finally learned to let her choose.